You can almost think of narcissism as, the emotional equivalent of the Borg from Star Trek, where it's like resistance is futile. And the victims are groomed to be just assimilated into the narcissist, distorted little weird reality. And even in this distorted fairy tale reality, it's like even when the clock strikes 12, it still feels like, perpetually stuck in, Groundhog Day. It's just a loop that just keeps repeating and repeating. And any attempts by us to break free are just, thwarted from, narcissistic entanglement. And we're met constantly with the same narcissistic script. The same scripted narrative just plays out again and again. And the script is carefully choreographed by the narcissist, and it makes leaving feel like an illusion that's almost impossible. And this virus of narcissism, it's relentless, and it's unyielding, and it's an emotional virus. A virus on our souls, on our hearts, on our identity. And what keeps us trapped is this feeling of longing for this illusion of a loving relationship, where the narcissist often lingers, like, just haunted memories, those haunted repeated dreams from inception. The ones that just kind of get picked on and morphed and manipulated. And victims of narcissists bear the ache of just this longing for normalcy. And even when it feels unbearable, they just yearn for just normalcy. It's almost like, in the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where the characters, willingly, erase their memories just in the hopes of a pain-free existence. That's what it can feel like, that yearning to erase those experiences. And these scars that victims of narcissism get, they can't just be erased. Because these emotional scars, they don't heal easily. And unfortunately, it's just like we weren't born with the delete button. And we can't just select our memories, pick and choose, and then drag them off into the trash. Like, we can't do that. So as victims of narcissism, it's just like we grapple with, this emotional roller coaster where we just get risen all the way up to these dizzying heights. And these incredible highs are just met with these incredibly intense, devastating lows. And you see it going up and down, up and down. You're like, this is not an episode of the Game of Thrones you're watching here. No, this is our life. This is happening in real time right now. And deep out in our core, victims of narcissism, it's just like what we do is we just yearn for love. Just yearn for affection, acceptance. And while our hearts yearn for those things, our rational minds remain just obscured. We're just unable to discern the illusion that was painted by the narcissist from the actual reality, the fact from the fiction. And those sweet promises that narcissists give us, there are times where those promises just act as like a numbing agent, almost akin to Huxley's Brave New World, where, the inhabitants of the novel, they use this mind-altering drug called soma to escape their troubles. It's like somehow in our minds, the narcissist is not only the cause, but also the remedy to our problems. When this entanglement happens, when we get sucked into their reality. And it's almost like us victims of narcissism are just chasing this elusive ticket. Like, from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Always seeking out that comfort, that reassurance, a little bite of sweetness. And it's just not there. It's empty. And we just walk around as just parched travelers seeking like an oasis in the desert. And what ends up happening is, victims of narcissism, it's just like this psyche. Our psyche becomes just imprisoned behind these metaphorical bars. And they're constructed by the narcissist's projected pain. Narcissism victims yearn for approval, for kindness. Any kind of remnants of the dream that initially was crafted by those manipulative narcissists. Now, back in the time, we wanted to believe that, they were puppeteers of joy and hope and happiness. And we end up just like yearning for just a glimpse of the real world outside, their fabricated existence. And yet we feel stuck and trapped in that little chaotic, weird world. And what happens when you're stuck, when you're entrapped in the narcissist's weird world? Is just over time, narcissism victims become emotionally malnourished and never satisfied with the narcissist's, hollow actions or don't want to beg for scraps anymore. Done with that. It's like we end up feeling lonely with them, and if we leave, we're lonely without them. So there's actually no benefit. And yet they expect us. Narcissists expect us just to be beggars, seeking just morsels of affection or morsels of attention from them. And those of us that have been ensnared in these narcissistic webs remain perpetually hungry for love that never truly ever existed. It's like, the citizens of District 12 in the Hunger Games, they're just yearning for sustenance in a dystopian world. Just basic rights, basic human dignity. We're yearning for it. And the truth is, like, narcissists, they're just so relentless in picking out a victim's flaws and insecurities and just emotional wounds. It's similar to the way, almost like, Freddy Krueger from, Nightmare on Elm Street, how he would just visit the dreams of his victims. And even after narcissism, it's just like our abusers sometimes just infest our dreams and give us these nightmares and we wake up in the middle of the night. We're like, I'm not even in a relationship with you. Don't even talk to you anymore. And yet their cruelty just kind of lives on in the brain. And it takes a while. It takes a while to process. It takes a while to heal, but it's just kind of a sign for where the work needs to go. Because we've been trapped in these cycles where we just lose so much safety over so much time. We start to think that that's our reality, and it's not. We need to be on guard and hypervigilant all the time. Because to survive that environment, they had to be on. And they did. They survived. And the next step is to process, to heal, and to move forward. And that's really hard because narcissists do this thing where they just constantly create, wounds. And then, they pick at and open up old wounds, poking at any wound that they can get any kind of rise out of you with. And they're good. They're really good at finding wounds, just like masters almost. And they pick at the wounds again and again and again. It's almost like a sadistic game, just designed to break the victim's spirit. And what we find is just the pain and the manipulation that are just kind of the hallmarks of narcissistic relationships. And they're very convoluted. Like convoluted is, remember that show Lost? So many convoluted twists and turns. It's like, it's been years now, and I'm still trying to make sense of that show. Much like I still try to make sense of Narcissist. But at some point, it's just like, it doesn't matter. It didn't make sense then. It makes more sense now, but it's never going to make complete sense. And the unfortunate part is that victims of narcissism endure just immense suffering in our pursuit to just get this illusory love that looked real, that felt real. Well, it turns out it wasn't. And once you've been entrapped in this emotional turmoil and manipulation, victims of narcissism just experience these feelings of just feeling trapped in just this house of mirrors. And it's a house full of distorted reality. There's like trap doors, and you're constantly trying to navigate your way through, and you're just bouncing off the walls. It just feels like we're just trapped in this never-ending cycle of torment. And it's really important to just understand the dynamics, these narcissistic dynamics that take place for those that are affected by narcissism, especially in a breakup from the cycle of abuse. And most importantly, it's important to know all the things that were happening in the background in order to regain our sense of self-worth. And when we break free, when we start to find ourselves, to change our path, to change our direction, it's like stepping, out of the shadows and into the light. It's similar to like, Lucy who stepped through the wardrobe in Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah, it's like that. And what did she discover? She discovered a realm where we can create and dictate our own destiny. And we can do it amidst all sorts of mythical creatures and epic quests, discovering ourselves again, discovering our new reality where we are in control of our narrative and control of our story. So it's okay. It's okay. Yes, we were a mere host to this narcissistic virus for a little while. But that's not all you are. You're also a warrior on an emotional battlefield fighting for your heart and your soul. And this virus may have invaded you. It may have. But it will not define you. It won't define you. And this is our opportunity to recognize, to resist, to reclaim. This emotional battlefield is yours to conquer. And you are in command of this narrative. You are in command of your own story. So when you turn the chapter, when you turn the page on that part of your life, guess what? The next page is blank. And you can fill whatever you want. My name is Miles. I'm from Narcovery. I'm a recovery coach. I was once a victim, but now I help other people just kind of, process and heal and grow and, redefine their lives. All right, let's just keep going. In all narcissistic relationships, there's this turning point because, we start with the love bombing and they build us up and they build us up and they make us feel safe, they make us feel comfortable. While they're doing that, they're mining for vulnerabilities. They're looking for all our weak spots and they're just kind of putting them in the back of their minds. In the back of their minds, they're just I'm going to remember and use this later. And there becomes this turning point in the relationship where things just aren't what they seem. That early story that we were fed, that early fantasy that was created just kind of starts to dissolve. Now we can talk about what's next, what's coming next. When that early narcissistic affection wanes, the victims of narcissists are left just emotionally starved. And they can't be satisfied with just mere breadcrumbs of affection every once in a while. Because the loneliness sets in. And we're starting to be groomed for the discard. And this narcissist shelter, this shelter that they created at the beginning, was once perceived as a source of comfort and truth. The same ground turns into a battlefield, becomes a breeding ground for, deception and falsehoods and lies. It's kind of like that deceptive front of, you remember the Overlook Hotel in Stephen King's The Shining? It's kind of like that. It looks all nice and beautiful on the outside. Beautiful resort. And yet it's haunted, full of demons that are going to mess with your mind. As these narcissistic relationships start to disintegrate, what was once like sweet lovemaking with a narcissist can turn into just devaluation and coercion and silence. And the narcissist can respond with just callous indifference. And they can switch. It's almost like a split personality. They go from, fabulous Dr. Jekyll to this evil Mr. Hyde. And sometimes you can see it coming, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes the switch is just like that. And we notice more and more as this relationship starts to fall apart, all the discrepancies, all the inconsistencies, and all these stories that we've heard over months and repeated again and again, they start to pile up, all these inconsistencies. It's a lot like those unsolved mysteries in Twin Peaks. And their web of lies, it just keeps growing and growing. And when we get to the end, when we get to that final discard, the ending of narcissistic relationships are just marked by just maximum cruelty. in the shortest amount of time possible, leaving victims of narcissists, without closure that they long for, that they want. It's like the abrupt shock ending of, the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. It's just like, whoa, did not see that coming. That's how narcissistic relationships end. Because true closure from any encounter with a narcissist can only come from within. You're the only one. Closure comes from within. You're not going to get closure from them. Closure from a narcissist comes when we say this is the end of the story, and we write the words "the end" and then flip the page. Because what we're going to find is a narcissist knows that we want closure. That's going to be a way for them to hoover us back and hoover us back. We want to tie up these relationships with all these loose ends, but the reality is, it's just like, forget it. It's like the loose ends are there. We're just going to leave them, and we don't need them anymore. Get rid of them. And to do that requires, swallowing a red pill of truth and just escape this blue pill facade that we've been force-fed through the entire relationship with the narcissist. And this false life that they created, and this false identity that they wanted us to buy into, that we just can't anymore. Our truth can only come in the form of just like a trustworthy mirror, where just victims of narcissists just must look into the mirror and rediscover themselves. Not the funhouse mirror that we were forced to look at for way too many years, a real mirror. Good lighting, like makeup lighting, where it's just like we see all our flaws and we know what to work on. And that's kind of like where we wake up. We wake up back into ourselves. With the realization just kind of dawns on us that this prince or this princess that we met in these narcissistic relationships, they never actually existed. And that happy ending was a lie. And in accepting that truth, the truth of the lie, we can finally break free from the narcissist, just fabricated reality. And we can look back at this stark contrast. There's such a stark contrast from the story that we were fed, that initial illusion of love, and what the reality of the narcissistic relationship was, where nothing was what it seemed. Nothing. Just like it was in Alice in Wonderland. And that's why we must accept closure from within. Closure comes from us, and we can get that closure. That's where we can just accept that the fairy tale was a myth. Much like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz. All we have to do is discover that we had the power within us the entire time. We had the power to just find our own way home to ourselves again. And to do that, we have to realize that this power, this wizard that we spent so much time searching for, was all just a facade. It was a smoke show. Pyrotechnics. Wasn't real. What I hope you realize, and what I hope you realize the point of this video, and the point of all my videos, is to just, point out this intricate dance of these narcissistic dynamics to help you and to help others navigate through this complexity. And through this adventure, through this journey that you went through, the person that you're going to discover, the person after narcissism, the person you're going to discover, that's you. And that's a potent version of you, a powerful you, an unbreakable you, and unshakable you. Because through this hurricane, what's left is someone that's strong enough to survive a hurricane. And deep within us, I haven't met anyone yet. Of all the clients that I've worked with over the years, all the people that I've helped, I haven't met one client yet that didn't have this indomitable spirit that was deep within. It takes time to get to, but it's there. It's always been there, and it's just waiting. It's waiting patiently beneath, layers and layers of trauma. And the trauma that wasn't even ours, because it wasn't caused by us. And because we didn't cause it to ourselves, it certainly doesn't get to define who we are. That's not our identity. And yeah, in recovery, there's going to be a point where it's just like we're going to adopt the victim persona. And for a while, that's okay. But it can't stay there. That can't be, 30 years from now, when we're at the retirement home, we're talking about, someone that we met, 30 years ago and how our lives have been shitty ever since. And now all we can talk about is just how messed up they made our lives. Because yeah, there is going to be a healing process. And when the healing process is done, the next chapter begins. Because the actual story becomes that we are the ones that couldn't be broken. Not by this narcissist, not by another narcissist we face, no narcissist. And certainly from this experience, one thing we're going to make for sure, we're going to know for sure, is that we're not going to deal with this again in the future. This isn't going to be a cycle of just one abusive relationship after another, because it ends here. And once we heal, that doesn't happen again, ever happens again. So I do hope that you found all this information helpful. And yes, it is very complex. And to be honest, all those little details and things about how they work and the way their minds think, it's so messed up that it actually doesn't really matter. Because what matters is that we find ourselves again. And when these tactics and all these little devious games that get played, we see them earlier. If we can handle that narcissism, we can handle another one. And we realize there's narcissists everywhere. And then what we could do is now we're living in a world that's boundaried, that's loving, that's compassionate. And we know we decide who comes in and out of our lives. We are the ones. What we realize is in life, it's not what we say yes to. It's not what we say yes to that defines us. It's what we say no to. Because when we say no to one thing, we make room to say yes to something else. And when we do say yes, it's a powerful yes. It's not a yes. Now can you stop abusing me? Because that conversation will never happen again. And it'll be a calm no. It's like just a simple no. It's not an angry no. There's a difference between a calm no and an angry no. It's like, no, you will not treat me like this, versus, no, you're not going to treat me like this. You can see the power of the second no. It's a no that we don't have to defend. And it's not from a place of being a victim. It's from being a survivor and then a thriver. And yeah, narcissists make victims. Victims eventually turn into victors. And I know the word victim and victor, they're very close. They're very similar. If you actually look at the word, it's only the last two letters. The last two letters that are different. But you change those last two letters and you change the entire meaning of the word. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you found it inspiring. If you like this content and want to get more, please hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button. And as new videos come out, they'll be popping up more and more on your feed. And the more and more of this information you have, the quicker we can heal and quicker we can change our perspective and quicker we can make sense of just narcissistic wizardry.